to help the environmental out. So, so I'm kind of excited to talk to some very sophisticated students in that class. The other class is the Culture Wars class, which has now been renamed as Divided America. And again, my philosophy is that, you know, conflict resolvers can be advocates, and in fact, being able to gain allies by softening differences between people is going to be necessary for the kind of cultural change that I think this decade is going to bring forth. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. So I'm Tom Hastings, and very quickly, the courses I teach are kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 301, 302, 303, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm occasionally teaching Intro, the 301 course, and then Peace Studies, the 302, Consensus Building, the 303, Participating in Democracy, which is a look at democracy from the grassroots up, rather than from the standard civics 101 approach. Then Ecology of War and Peace, which is the intersection between caring for the environment, defending the environment, and methods by which we manage conflict and the impact of militarism upon our environment. And then 306, which is the only course that I teach every term. It's Nonviolence in History and Campaign Design. So I've written a few books along the way. Most of them center around some aspect of nonviolence. So that continues to be my primary specialty. And I've been on the Economic Advisory Council of the International Center on Nonviolent Conflict pretty much since they started almost 20 years ago. I've worked with them on a lot of projects here and elsewhere. And was a past co-chair of the Peace and Justice Studies Association, which is our academic association, and I think Amanda is currently on the board. And I work with the International Peace Research Association Foundation. We give small and medium-sized grants almost exclusively to researchers from the Global South. So I do a lot of proposal review and recommendations for them. The focus for me is to turn our undergraduate degrees, and including our majors and minor, but also our certificates, into far more focus on the competencies that will be valuable and useful to those who seek a career in our field. This is a shift from kind of the origins of our field, and there are a few of us, and Rachel is in the forefront on this, who are helping to kind of turn this aircraft carrier, which is, you know, it's the whole long struggle to turn us away from being, quote, just a liberal arts theoretical degree that makes you into a much more groovy person, into somebody with actual marketable skills toward a career that will both enable you to pay the rent and be fulfilling. So that's kind of my driving passion. Rachel's actually done a lot more work on that. She's going to talk about that in a little while. Next in alphabetical order is Vandy Kanyako, but he's not with us today. And so you are going to have to pester him by yourself to find out who he is. He's a wonderful scholar and practitioner, originally from Sierra Leone, and we are very lucky to have him on our faculty. Now I'm going to turn it over to you, Patricia, for your introduction, please.
Thank you, Tom. Did Aislinn want to say hello? Because technically M is before S.
I think I go after you, Patricia. I think we're on the director and then staff part of it.
As you wish. Well, good morning, everybody. I apologize for joining you late. It's such a pleasure to see everyone. Week 3, here we are. Welcome especially to students to fall term. I'll speak for myself. It's been quite a demanding year, 2020, and I've come to really treasure the very special kind of flavor of commitment in conflict resolution. I'm a historian by trade, and I'm kind of on loan to CR for a few years to help out in this corner of the college, and I'm really honored to do so. So, you know, we need each other. Is I think the thesis of 2020, and it's been very gratifying to see our campus community and our department in particular really, you know, tease out what that means and try to make good on you know, the social contract, right? The relationship between students and teachers is part of the larger social contract. So we're here for you, and we're here for one another. And so that's the spirit with which I approach the academic endeavor this year. And I'm delighted to see folks and look forward to being available. Aizen will talk about ways in which we're going to help students connect to faculty individually and maybe collectively. And so all of that is to be anticipated. One little teaser is that the year will culminate with a very special anniversary celebration for conflict resolution. Students and faculty and I have been working along on this starting last year to try to tell the story of conflict resolution in the campus and in the community. And we've got some oral histories done. We're gathering the printed archival record. Thank you, Rob, and staff, previous administrators. So it's going to be, we're going to have a nice arc to our year to serve students at our very best that we can, and then to celebrate all that CR has been. And oh, I almost brought it, I'll bring it to the faculty meeting next week, but there's like, I think we're going to do a little book maybe. We're going to really try to mark this year in a special way. So that's enough for me, but I'm really glad to be here. So thank you all.
Thank you, Patricia. Aislinn, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aislinn, and I am the lead staff and staff coordinator for the Conflict Resolution Program. I came to PSU in 2017, and since then, I think I've probably met a few students. Gabriel, I remember meeting you in person before the era of masks. I think so. You stopped by the, nope, okay. Well, anyways, you look like another conflict resolution student. Welcome. But so anyways, I've been around since 2017 with minimal interaction with students. Primary interaction is kind of on the back end to keep some of the finer wheels and cogs oiled and greased so that the conflict resolution program articulates itself well within the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. You might know me best eventually, if you don't know me now, through emails that I'll send out periodically about different events or opportunities that come up for students, or sometimes from our stakeholders in the field who want to send us things like conferences or job prospects. So that's primarily how you'll meet me. And I'm also here, as Patricia had said, to connect you with your faculty members if you're not finding that there's kind of this organic or immediate connection. So you're welcome to email me with questions that kind of where you're not sure where they should land. If it doesn't feel like it's something that your faculty members or advisors need to answer, I'm happy to be kind of that front door for you. And then, yeah, like I said, primarily my work is on the back end. I worked in academia full-time since 2010. Prior to that, when I was an undergrad and a student, I also was a staff member. I was a writing tutor. So I could say that my academic career in academia extended from 2003 until present, which is a very long time for not having a PhD to be here. But I'm surrounded by some of our great minds, and it's a pleasure being able to work in this department with everyone who wants to, you know, kind of make our world livable and habitable for the future. So thank you for being here today. And I look forward to maybe interacting with you in the future.
Yes, Aislinn knows all and only reveals some, and you can ask her about the rest, including some, frankly, some badass paddling stories. And yeah, she's on the water more than anybody I personally know. And those stories are pretty fun. We're going to shift over now to, thank you, Aislinn. We're going to shift over now to And Amanda, thanks for asking about this, but Rachel's little sister, no, we're going to shift over to Libby. We're going to do her introduction, and then we'll move to Brent and Zeke, and we're going to ask Gabe to sort of reintroduce himself. He introduced himself earlier when there were just a couple of us on the call. So let's start with you, Libby.
Good morning. I'm Libby Fessenden. I'm Rachel's little sister. I'm best friends with her and got to watch as she went through this major and loved it so much and shared some of her experiences with me in the classes. And I got super excited about it and decided that I was going to copy her. So I'm a transfer student. I transferred from Mount Hood with my Associate of Arts transfer degree. And so I'm a junior and just starting to take these classes. I'm super excited. I was going to start with the intro course, and then Rob's Culture Wars had a spot, and I wanted to try it because it was the first term. So I'm really enjoying that class, and I'm excited to take more. Is there more I need to say? What else do we want to know? Is that everything?
Thank you. Brent, you have to, there you go.
Thanks. Yeah, here we go. My name's Brent. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I am a returning student. Obviously, you can tell I'm a bit older. I did a little bit of college in the 90s and decided I didn't quite know what I wanted to focus on, and had a real trouble with motivation in the meantime. So I left, not realizing how much harder it would be to come back with a wife and a family and a full-time job. But here I am. So I started in 2012 and I went back to PCC and got my associate's degree. I did a couple of classes one term at PSU when we ran out of funds. And now 7 years later, I'm ready to sort of get going again. I'm definitely at a place in my life where it's critical for me that my career have a lot of meaning, you know, I'm at the part of my life where I'm starting to think about what kind of regrets I don't want to have. Should I be blessed enough to live to a ripe old age and have a deathbed someday? I want to be able to look back and feel like I used the limited amount of time that I got here to make a difference. And so I've done a lot of soul searching and trying to figure out what difference I thought was most needed. And when I first went back to school in 2012, I was really, really sure that empathy was the piece we needed. And I grew up with a mom who was a therapist and vowed I would never be a therapist. And I went to meet with a career counselor at PCC, and he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to help people. I think a lot of people are having emotional problems and we're not very nice to each other, and I want to help people through that." And he said, "That sounds like mental health." And I said, "You're insane. My mom's a therapist. I'm never doing that." And I said, "But other things I've thought about, maybe I could work with the deaf community." And he said, "Oh, are you really interested in hearing?" And I said, "No, I just think finding out your child would be deaf would be so hard, and you'd really need a lot of work to deal with the emotions behind that." And he said, "That sounds like mental health." And I said, "Well, no, maybe I would like to work in physical therapy." And he said, "Are you really fascinated with how the body works?" And I said, "No, I just feel like those people really need someone to coach them through the emotional challenges of," and he said, again, mental health. And so I went with the plan to get a psychology degree. And I started getting really, really ambitious, which is hard when you're in your early 40s, late 30s. I came up with this idea that what I wanted to do was to prove that if people could be of more good out of prison, that there would be a value in changing our justice system. Not by proving that people, I come from a place that I believe we're all better than our worst mistakes. But I don't think the general public is there yet. And so I thought the idea of proving that people deserve to not be, locked up forever or put to death would be not enough of a compelling argument. But maybe if I could prove that by repointing people to where they could do so much good in their community, that people would think, man, we can't even afford to not have them out there helping, that maybe I could do that. And I figured in order to do that, I was going to need massive degrees from massive schools to get anybody to listen to me and take me seriously. And So that was pretty overwhelming. And when we ran out of money, I thought, well, maybe I could just work with dogs. So I got a job working at a dog training school, and I realized pretty quickly that I don't want to work with dogs. I love dogs, but I really want to work with people. And I hated the daycare work I was doing, but my favorite part was talking with people afterwards and having an opportunity to change their ideas about what dogs were capable of and the most effective ways to encourage them. And seeing that light come on was so powerful for me. And at my company, they really, really needed someone who could help them with ops. My background is really in sales and customer service. I worked at Yahoo for a long time, and I could see a lot of problems with the way the company was being run and things. And so I said, hey, if the ops manager is not working out, I just want you to know if you need me to, I could step up. I mean, I was in a receptionist role kind of, and doing some dog training, and they put me in there. And so I've been there for a while, about 5 years. And slowly my job has gotten further and further away from the clients, and more I'm servicing, exclusively like the trainers. When people ask me what my job is, I usually define myself as I'm kind of like Alice from the Brady Bunch. My job is, I'm not actually the star of the show. My job is to make sure that all the things that need to happen behind the scenes are done, and to tend to people who are, feeling discouraged or overwhelmed. So the real places that I found joy in my work has been in mediating between staff members and owner, or helping staff members with their own individual frustrations and things like that. And as I said, the more I've been pulled away from the clients, the more I've just really lost any passion for the work that I do. To the point where when the pandemic came, I just sort of said, you know what, I'm never going back. I'm going home to work, and when this is over, I'm not going back. And I haven't had to, but I've really spent a lot of time looking at that and come back to that same idea of I want to spread empathy. And I'm sorry, I'm talking a long time. I think the other piece that has really informed me is I grew up very, very in a liberal home, and I'm married to someone who's a very conservative Republican. And so the divide that's in our country has been really amplified in my home. As we figure out how we're going to pass on our values to our children and how we're going to deal with all that. And so it's really, really become clear to me what a bad job we're doing on both sides of listening to each other and taking in both sides' feelings. If there's anything that I've learned in the last 4 years, it's that shame and contempt are completely ineffective in changing anybody's minds. And so I think, again, because I become so aware of this, conflict resolution just really spoke to me in terms of, I think this is what I want to make my life's work, is really helping people to be able to listen to each other better, and to really hear the needs of each other and humanize each other, no matter how apart we may feel on issues and things like that. So I'm back, and I'm in the intro class.
Okay, thank you very much, Brent. Let's hear from you, Zeke.
All right, hi guys. I'm Zeke. I am a transfer student. This is my junior year from PCC. So I'm just here to learn, just like you, Libby. I'm excited for this major, and I always saw conflict resolution kind of in the background, more for like the graduate program. And so seeing PSU have it was really exciting, and I think there's a lot of potential with the stuff we learn here. So I'm super excited. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Zeke. Are there questions about the basic requirements of either our major or minor?
Were you going to have Gabriel reintroduce himself, Tom?
Oh, thank you, Amanda. Gabe, go ahead, please.
Morning again. Yeah, it's Gabe or Gabriel, whichever one's fine. I learned about conflict resolution when I was looking for degrees to go back in international work, whether it's with something with the embassies or just NGOs. Just wanted to get back into international politics, and conflict resolution was something that showed up a lot. And Oregon's home, so when I heard PSU had a good program, I was excited to come here. And this is my first term. I'm in the introduction to conflict resolution.
Gabe, you represent a growing population of former military who are taking conflict resolution courses. And of course, with our sort of endless wars, there are so many more veterans coming back to school. And to me, it's been very interesting because I'm just a peace person from way back. I was a conscientious objector during Vietnam, and then came into this field through peace education. And yet I'm finding, and through nonviolent activism, and yet I'm finding that oftentimes the most disciplined activists and sometimes the most disciplined students come out of the military, and they frequently have some statement similar to, well, I sort of learned all the hardest and most destructive ways to manage conflict, and I got, pretty good with that, but I'd like to do something that doesn't involve so much pain all around. Are there ways to do this? And so that's their attraction to our field. I'm not speaking for all of them, but I really do want to note the very large number of veterans who are taking the courses and who are declaring major, minor, or that they are taking a certificate. So I appreciate that. And I rather than go through each element that's required in the degrees, I just want to put this out to the students and just say, do you have questions about the degrees? And I want to offer one bit of information first, and that is that as we are evolving, I was the author, basically Rob Gould sort of lashed me until I did so, of the undergraduate degree proposals, both the major and the minor, and then many years later, or a few years later, the first certificate. And now we've got another certificate sort of underway. And so to get those passed, that was a process and a big struggle. And all of us participated in that. Every single faculty member worked with me on putting that together. And then we got it through, but to do so meant that you had to conform to sort of what the norms were. And the norms were basically, you have to defend this as a very coherent package of courses. And so that was the original proposal. It got through successfully. But what was missing then, and what we have reintroduced now, is this: that our arc of potential courses that apply to your educational goals and your career goals is quite wide. We are not training in RNs to pass state boards. We are training in people to do a very, very wide arc of potential career preparation. So this means that with advice, preferably, but even without advice, you can construct all of your electives as you see fit. So even though it shows these electives go with the major, you come to me and say, these are my CR electives that I want to take, and I will work with Aislinn to get those officially permitted in your DARS report, your DARS audit. So you have a lot more latitude with regard to your electives than it looks like. I just want to make that clear, because we have creation of new courses as they are needed on an ongoing basis, and we have courses that aren't listed in the sort of officially prescribed electives, and that's true for the minor as well. If you are declaring a CR minor, then work with one of us, work with me, work with one of us to figure out, like, what is the best combination of courses toward where I want to be in 5 or 10 years that will serve me the best. And we will make that work for your conflict resolution minor. Having said all that, do you have questions about what is required or what is permitted? Okay, well, let it be known that we are all available by appointment for advising sessions as questions occur to you. Probably 66.6% of the questions that I get from students, I have to ask Aislinn for the correct answer. Just to be fully transparent about who knows stuff. And if she doesn't know, Patricia does. So I'm completely backstopped. So ask me anything. Yeah.
Can I jump in for a sec, Tom?
Yes, of course.
One of your many great contributions to the undergraduate program is writing the undergraduate handbook. And not all our students know that it exists. We have a new website, as you're probably noticing, around campus. And of course, with COVID and everything else, we're certainly not making hard copies of our student handbooks and having people pick them up in the office. But I want to draw your attention to that short but very, I think, impactful document in the online version. So if you go into the CR website, and actually, I think it was shared out, but I can do that again. That's a great thing to just share out. Maybe it was in the newsletter. I think we've shared out the link, but I'll do that again. It's a wonderful document because it really puts it puts CR's undergraduate courses in very pointed dialogue with university studies, for example, as you're navigating your choices in UNST. And it also lifts up one of the new certificates, the one that's operational, and it shows you all the different cool courses that you could interweave with CR. And it can just like inspire you to be like, oh my God, look at that. That's really interesting. So maybe you don't want the certificate, but it's like, oh, this course on stigma and marginalization in psychology. That might actually, I'm thinking of wonderful narrative students have shared, that might actually be, and maybe Tom would let me take that. I'll check in with him. And if it works for the certificate, can I just fold that in as an elective to my major or minor? So the handbook is a delightful, handy new tool we have. It's just new this year. And it's just a great, it's just one more piece of bringing you into a common conversation about the degree and all its offerings. So
thank you very much.
Kudos to Tom and everyone who chipped in, of course, but yeah.
Patricia, where can people find that handbook? I was just responding to Brent in the chat who'd asked for the link.
Yeah, I'll put it right in the chat. No problem.
I was looking on our website and it's not very clear where you would find it. I'm wondering
it's part of the running footer at the bottom of every page under undergraduate program.
Oh, okay.
So, but I'll put the link right in. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, the PSU website is user hostile, to coin a phrase. Sorry about that. Patricia and a number of us have been scuffling with the administration as they do in their infinite wisdom. And in the era of global warming, frankly, the pace of response sometimes is slower than glaciers. So having said all that, yes, Patricia, thank you very much for that. And we look forward to being able to make that a resource for each undergraduate, because it gives you, amongst other things, it gives you the fiddly bits. So like, I wonder if I can do that. I wonder, how many 100 and 200 courses I can take and still have that count for a minor or have that count in electives. So all of that, the rules that you can find out sometimes by asking your PSU general advisor as opposed to your programmatic advisor. Those kinds of things can be found in the manual. But if you still have questions about any of that, I mean, it gets into the bureaucratic arcane sometimes, and cutting through that is something that you should expect us to do for you. And so that's our intent.
Tom, can I just add to that? I think especially in the COVID time, the students' experience of university of Portland State is a very fragmented one.
Yeah.
You know, essentially, you're coming into individual classes, and Gabe, I think, as you said, some teachers in classes have got it and others really don't. And I think I can speak for all of us that we do have it in our classes, that, you know, we're all pretty competent at managing the technology in a way that hopefully makes the technology itself fairly invisible, so that you can get at the content that you've really come to learn. You know, I'm noticing this term that I have more students than usual who've never taken an online course before, and who are pretty anxious about that. And as I've tried to keep reassuring them, it's like, the objective of this course is not that you learn how to use D2L. You know, it's that it becomes completely transparent to you, so that the tools here are just, you know, you can use them without having to think about them, so that you can really get at what you came for, which is not learning how to use D2L, but learning the content that we're talking about. And I'm realizing that, especially at this time, as your teacher, I am your contact with the university. So in a way that I often haven't had to do before COVID, I kind of direct traffic too. It's like, you know, if you need Veterans Resource Center, Gabe, I can direct you to them. If someone else needs the Disabilities Resource Center, I can direct to them. If you want to know more about queer life on campus, I can direct you. If you come from another culture, there are cultural resource centers that may be doing groups that are, you know, supportive at this time. Or if you're if you're the first person in your family to be doing a degree, we have support. There's a writing center, you know, all of that kind of thing. So in many ways, and I think PSU hasn't conceptualized this particularly well, in such a way that faculty are really oriented to the idea that we are the university. You know, for many students currently, we are your experience at PSU, we're the brand. So what I would like to say is that if you're a major or a minor in this department, we're on that. We know that, you know, and we are here for you. So we can be your first port of call. Aislinn can be that person, any one of us. You know, we've all been teaching here for probably way longer than you would prefer. You know, we know our way around. And clunky though the website is, and honestly, my contribution to global warming is trying to use the PSU website. It heats me up every time. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is like the third iteration of our website and I still can't find my way around. You know, how can we expect students to cope with this? But we're with you, you know, we want to help. We want you to have a good experience of being at PSU. And as a conflict resolution department, that's what we're here to do, is help you resolve the conflicts that you may have. So anyway, I just wanted to add that. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rachel. And that is absolutely the case, is that just because of COVID and all that means in terms of not being able to knock on a professor's door and ask for something, or walk up to Aislinn at the front desk and say, help me with this, that regard us as your portal to this whole like labyrinthine, Byzantine bureaucracy, where you should not have to spend, you know, like more than 5 minutes looking for an answer. If you do, ask one of us and we'll spend the time that we need to get you that answer within this sometimes very obscure system. And it's not that PSU is malicious in any way at all. It is that, like every other institution, trying to figure out how to make things operable and accessible for everybody in this era. So I want to reiterate that all the faculty are open to individual appointments at any time, and about any matter at all. So the nice thing about Zoom is that you can get a private session. We don't have to reserve a private room anymore. We can actually have a one-on-one meeting at our mutual convenience. Rachel, I'd like to ask you to sort of talk about what we can do with our conflict resolution degrees and or certificates.
Can you make me a co-host so that I can share my screen? I've pulled up the site for the careers site so that I can just show people kind of the schematic on which that's based.
I can't make you a co-host, but I can make you the host, which I will do right now, and then you can pass it around to whomever you want.
Okay. I'll pass it back to you probably, but we'll see. Maybe I'll be like subversive.
Yeah, watch out, Zeke. You might just be the host any minute now.
Okay, so let me just see what I can pull up. Okay, right, there it is. As you can see, I was trying to figure this out. Okay, so I teach the conflict resolution careers class, which is CR 411, and currently that's an elective, but we are moving towards putting it as a required course in the core. And the intention is that you would take this towards the end of your time in our program. However, I have seen increasingly that students who are at the beginning of their major or minor are interested in coming to see, okay, so what am I going to do with this if I actually do this degree? So I'm just going to move this over here so that you can see. At the Kroc Institute, John Paul Lederach, who some of you may have come across, worked with a student to produce this sort of schematic of the opportunities for careers in our field. And unfortunately, I can't show the whole of it on this screen, so I'm going to have to kind of scroll through it a little bit. But as you'll see, we'll start in the middle. There are these three broad sections of possible careers in conflict resolution and peace building. One area is focused on structural and institutional change. Then justice and healing is another area, and then violence prevention, conflict response, and transformation is another sector. And as you'll see, as the schematic moves out into the outer ring, there are definitely overlaps. And I certainly, you know, when I look at my own career and what my focus is, justice and healing is definitely at the center of my work. I'm interested in reconciliation and restorative justice, and as you can see, they position restorative justice pretty clearly there, but they also show that it bleeds into structural and institutional change. If we're going to be able to do justice and healing in an effective way, we have to change some of our institutions and our structural arrangements in order to permit that. Because it's at the top, we can't show that it's also about violence prevention, conflict response, and transformation, because if we do restorative justice right, then the people who've committed harm in the past will not continue to do so. So I can say that I'm working in all three sectors. I'm aware of all three sectors, but at the moment my focus is in restorative justice. So for me and for Tom and Rob and Amanda, we have put our whole careers are about peace building in one form or another. We've found our place on this scheme, really, in order to focus our entire careers. Not everybody wants to do that. Some people in our program are interested in, for example, being part of human resources programs, or they want to work in international NGOs. They want to be in, they're already bankers and they don't really envisage themselves moving out of that. Or they train dogs, like Brent is involved in. But you can still find ways in which you can position yourself, you can insert yourself into whatever job you're doing as the peace builder there. Because the reality is that in human relationships, sometimes harm happens. And that especially when we genuinely take the business of building equity and equitability into our social arrangements, it is inevitable that we will be addressing harms from the past and that we may inadvertently harm in our relationships with each other. We certainly will have conflict, and sometimes that conflict will rise to the level of harm. And so the business of creating a positive peace in a diverse society is the business of working for equity. Because we've had diversity before. We've been a diverse society since time immemorial. What we have not tried before is to do it with equity. That is really kind of the exciting moment that we're in. And in order to do that and have a positive peace where truly everybody is included and collaborative in creating and imagining a future which we share globally, then we're in the business of positive peace building. Because if we don't do that non-violently, we will bring about the end of our species, not to mention the other species that inhabit this planet. So our work is critical and vital, and in this moment where fear is polarizing people, this is why Rob's class is so critical at the moment also, and why all of us have to be infusing these ideas in what we're teaching, is to try to work out ways that we can bring people together and build a positive peace where everybody is at the table. The previously marginalized voices are brought into the middle. The people who've been in the middle cede space so that those other voices can be heard. And we maybe step back so that those of us with privilege step back so that there is space for these other voices to be heard. So the careers class is really a space in which students can figure out how they personally insert. So we have quite a strong emphasis in the careers class on, first of all, systems thinking, realizing that we have war systems and then we have peace systems, and they exist on a continuum. They are not completely disconnected. And so the effort that any one of us can make can move the peace system further over, where we can really be working to try to increase the peace by having very diverse people come together and work out how to relate with each other in ways that do not rise to the level of violence. Either structural violence, that is violence in institutions which exclude people and do the kind of structural violence that we're seeing currently with disproportionate incarceration of people in minority groups, disproportionate poverty in people in minority groups, disproportionate hunger, disproportionate homelessness, and disproportionate death in COVID. I mean, what better example could we be confronted with right now than the disproportionate economic and physical impact of COVID on people? We have not got it here yet in the United States, or really anywhere in the West. And I think the United States has a particular contribution to make globally to try to figure this out, and we are really doing it badly right now. Our global image is at a pretty much, in my view, somewhat all-time low, and that we have a real opportunity for all of us to be coming together to talk about how we can impact that trend. So anyway, that's what the class is about. It's to help you self-assess. What are your strengths? What are your aptitudes? What do you want to do? I think, Brent really spoke compellingly about his own personal mission. And so the class is intended to help each of you who take it identify your personal mission, and then to support you to clarify what the activities are going to be that will enable you to have the impact you hope for. So that's what the class is about, and that's what I think all of us are trying to help students identify, as each of us personally is also in that. It's an evolving and iterative process of, in this moment, in this election term, what do I have that can be of use? And how can I leverage that for maximum impact in this moment? Okay, so other questions? So I see Brent has raised his hand.
Yeah, so my question is, as I look at this and I think about, as you said, I have an idea of kind of what I want to do, but even as I look at this circle, I'm a little bit all over the circle. You know, I mean, I imagine, you know, working with people on a daily basis, teaching them communication skills, but also having a hand in restorative justice as a consultant or, you know, whatever. I mean, this is all fantasy, but I wonder if this class would be helpful. I know I have my core classes to take care of, but there's a whole lot of electives. And unlike any other college experience I've had before, you know, I looked and it said you had to take 9 or 11. And instead of me figuring out which ones I'm going to take, I have to weed out which ones I don't get to take, which is exciting place to be, but hard to, you know, make those choices. And Tom was, you know, very clear with me on make sure that you pick electives that are going to give you skills that you can use. And so I wonder if this class would be helpful in narrowing down which electives to focus on. And so if that's the case, I wonder if there's an advantage to taking it before I start my electives, or if that's not really what it does.
No, I think it could definitely help you. I mean, one of the end results of the class when we thought it was the last class that people were going to take is an employability portfolio. So it's helping you put together all the pieces to know how, for example, to talk about your degree in a job interview, because conflict resolution isn't something everybody already knows about. So the prospective employer who might think that they're looking for a social worker or for a psychology major or a criminal justice major will go, conflict resolution, huh? And you've got to have a pitch for that. You know, it's like, what is conflict resolution? Why does that position you to be a better employee? However, that final assignment can be adapted so that a student who's at the beginning of their program can be really thinking about their pathway through the program. And also that, you know, while we do require a majority of your electives are taken in conflict resolution, there may be 1 or 2 classes that are not offered by us that will be helpful in your particular pathway. And so we would also look at what those might look like and how you would position them as conflict resolution courses in your major, in the argument that they participate in your major. So it can serve in both of those ways. The class is only offered in the spring currently, so don't wait for it. Keep taking classes, but you'll be all of you would be welcome in the class earlier in your program than later. And if we start to see a trend of that, I'll adapt the course accordingly.
Can I say something about that too?
Yeah.
And I think some students just need to get their feet wet with some of the terminology and understanding of the field at large before they're ready to make those kinds of decisions. Brent, it sounds like you've given this quite a bit of thought and had several sort of cycles of starting out your degree. So at this point, you may have more clarity than a younger student or a student who hasn't had exposure to conflict resolution subject matter. So I don't think that, you know, the fact that it might make more sense for some to do it at the start of their degree, and it might make more sense for some to do it at the end of their degree. I think while our education lends itself to employment, it's not a vocational training. And the goal of the coursework is to expand your thinking so that you have more imagination about what your options might be at the end of the road. So I appreciate Rachel's consideration that it varies, and whenever it makes sense to you to take it is something that you can either ascertain on your own or in conversation with an advisor or, you know, faculty member, whatever makes sense.
I would also just add that what I'm showing you here is the conflict resolution careers site, which is not the website of the class. So if you wish to be added to the site, you're welcome to email me and ask me to add you. I can add you to the site. It will appear in your ongoing tab of your D2L, and therefore will be open to you the whole time that you're at PSU. And I'm happy to help you navigate the site, which is set up actually according to this scheme. And for you to start looking around for resources there. If that interests you now, you can do that, or you can just sort of have it there. If you take the class, then I automatically add you to the site. But if you decide not to take the class, which is fine too at the moment, and then you can still use the site and ask me anything you want about it.
Is this a Notre Dame site or a PSU site? I'm confused.
This this particular scheme is on the Notre Dame site, so it's linked. But the website that we've created is on D2L, and so this is just one of the links you'd navigate. As you know, in my classes there are a bazillion links, and this is one of them in this class, or this site. Sorry.
I didn't know
So-
about that site. That sounds amazing.
So
Fabulous.
I would like to mention something about how to think strategically about this, because I appreciate Amanda's comment that it's, quote, not vocational, but on the other hand, it's sort of all vocational in the sense that as undergrad students, one thing to bear in mind is that when you take a course, if you've got at least some vocational aspirations, try to bend the content of that course and your outcomes and your what your products are toward those aspirational vocational goals, so that you are not just this, passive vessel receiving information, but thinking about it in a more sort of Freudian way to use that information, use these opportunities of learning to serve you as you think about what you would like to do with your life to make a fulfilling living. That's kind of like at the heart, I think, of what we want for each and every student in our program. So I'm going to ask everybody who is interested in making any additional statements or any additional questions or comments to do so now before we wrap up.
I actually am going to excuse myself for another meeting, but it's been great to meet all of you and to see everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. And we got a message from Rob, same thing from him. A lot of us have Zoom meetings sort of stacked up against each other. It's been exciting to do that and interesting. It's like it certainly cuts down on commute time. I'll be meeting soon with the founder of Ceasefire, this amazing MD who says violence is a contagion, and he wanted to meet. So, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that can go on right now, right? Because COVID has been this crisis and opportunity for us to say, all right, everybody knows how to Zoom now, so we can meet with anybody, anywhere. And so that's what we're seeing. So I want to reopen this to everybody here.
Maybe just a final shameless plug for our graduate program in terms of next steps. We are, I think CR has got a very proud tradition of welcoming our graduates to further study. There's lots of ways you can do that. If you want a little bit, you can get a certificate or two, or you want a full master's. And I want to also, again, poor PSU website can't get the love yet, but on our About tab, on the CR page, on our About tab, which is quite prominent on our front page, you will see a fairly up-to-date list of all the groovy jobs that mostly our master's degree students have. But nonetheless, a high percentage of those folks are PSU undergraduates, formerly. And also just like the ideas, like how do people come up with these creative careers? It's a pretty cool list. And so I just want to point you there. If your mind works that way, I love the graphic. It's very provocative, very suggestive, but it's also really cool to see how people create their own nonprofits, set up their own consultancies, work in healthcare. People come up with great things. So just a little plug for this is something we're also going to do systematically this year because it's our 25th anniversary year, just to really lift up the accomplishments of alumni from the CR program. So you'll be hearing more, but if you want a little tease, you can see a nice list on the About tab on the new homepage.
So one of the downsides of not being able to meet in person is that usually at orientation, you at least get some free pizza and, you know, food that's bad for you and good for you. So sorry that we are not offering that today. This is going to be, you know, sort of a self-directed foodie moment for everybody. That's normally one of our strengths. Patricia is kind of the, you know, the all-time mom in that sense, and I'm a Catholic worker. My main motivation is to provide hospitality for everybody. So we're not able to do that like we normally could, but outside of that, the upside is now you've been able to cut down on the commute into campus pretty significantly just by clicking on something instead. So I want to wish everybody the best of years. This 2020 has been, in the words of somebody on Facebook recently, actually I think it was Cynthia Boaz, one of our conflict transformation professors from Sonoma, and I've known Cynthia for years, and she said 2020 has just been merciless. And it's like, this is, if we can take this, we can do anything. And I'm seeing in the resilience of faculty and students in our program, and Aislinn, I never mean to exclude you. I sort of consider you faculty anyway, so it's like there's an asterisk by Aislinn's name at all times, and I think that we're pretty well positioned to serve the world and ourselves very well. That we are creating things that have never been created before. Do not hesitate to access that creativity and ask the rest of us, like, okay, how can we contribute to your creativity? That's what I'm hearing, and that's what we stand ready to help you with in any way that we can. Anybody have any famous last ones? Where I started teaching, we kept a list on the wall, and we just started to refer to them as FLOs. So anybody have a famous last one? Patricia, I'm looking at you. You always come up with something.
I just wanted to say too, I don't have to dash off, so if we can leave this open for mingle time, which is the other part of the pizza time, is the opportunity for less formal presentation and more mingling. So I think if I'm the host, I can stay for a while after this if others have to dash off, and we can just chat if that is helpful.
Just a big thank you for me, for everyone who set this up and attended today. And I do have to scamper, but you know, it's an honor to work with students and colleagues in this program. So I wish you all the best, and I'm around if you need me. Adios.
Patricia.
Thank you, Patricia. Okay, we are now transitioning from an orientation to social mixer as hosted by Rachel.
Are there any kind of informal questions or thoughts about what you've heard?
I would love to learn more about that careers website. I'm not sure how to get into contact with you or how to be added to that, but I'd be interested in that.
So you can see my name under my little Brady Bunch box there. So it's rachel.cunliffe@pdx.edu.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And I hope you notice my cultural competence. I've never actually watched the Brady Bunch. It wasn't on in England when I was growing up.
I only have like a very vague understanding as well from references, so we can just like laugh at this in-joke together.
Outdated reference.
I'm going to have to stop referring to myself as Alice at my office because I'm getting a lot of, maybe Pepper Potts from Iron Man is a better.
Well, Sesame Street, I hear, also did something like this. I didn't watch that either.
So I raised boys when Sesame Street was a big thing in its early days. So I will claim some literacy with the early Sesame Street, but like so many, I've never seen a single episode of the Brady Bunch. So I just take that on faith that everybody else will inform me about what that means.
Wasn't there a game show like Celebrity Squares or Hollywood Squares or
Right.
something?
Hollywood
Right.
Squares for sure.
Right.
X gets the square.
Yeah.
I had a question, informal one anyways. What is probably your favorite career that you've heard coming from somebody with a conflict resolution major?
Favorite or most common?
Not necessarily. I was just looking if there's something unique. So I was more favorite, like a good story that goes with it. But most common is also probably a really good one.
Well, I guess the one that immediately springs to mind is a fellow who actually graduated before I came on board. I've only been here since 2010. And at the time I met him, he was the program director for the Juvenile Victim Offender Restorative Justice Program. And so he was my trainer when I started learning how to do that in the early 2000s. He went on from there to work for the legacy health system. And he was initially, when he started working for them, because he just needed to be paid more than he was being paid in the other program, he was looking at evaluating different departments for their absenteeism. And what he discovered as he started to do that work was that people were absent when there was unresolved conflict in the office. And so he created a position for himself, basically, at Legacy in conflict resolution in their departments for the whole region. And that he became sort of peripatetic or itinerant, moving around different hospitals and parts of the legacy health system, helping to resolve conflict within departments and seeing absenteeism and attrition, people actually leaving and burnout and so on. Lots of really positive impact in a health system. And a health system is a place where there is a huge amount of conflict. The vertical structure is very deep, and there's a lot of contested communication that happens within very high stakes communications. So they have worked hard, actually, along with airlines, interestingly, to figure out how people should respond in emergencies and how they're going to communicate across their different occupational cultures in emergency situations. And airlines, I don't know what other word to use, piloted, excuse the pun, piloted these communication systems because of having to deal with passengers in emergencies. But that then hospitals and health systems moved into taking up some of those ideas. And Joe was really involved in looking at how, instead of looking just at clinical staff, they were also looking at staffing in general and how the clinical difference between sort of nurses and technicians and doctors was being replicated in their other sort of staff support systems, and that they needed to really start thinking about how they were going to manage those conflicts that came up there so that people didn't just leave, because there were other health systems that people could pretty easily transition into. So there was quite a lot of fluidity in staffing of health. And so people didn't have to stay if it wasn't working for them. But of course, that was very costly to the organization because people have to be trained on particular systems and so on. There's a high investment in individual employees. And so it was not in the organization's interest to have all that fluidity. And so he made his own job. And I think that is something that I see a lot, is that people make their own jobs. For example, I mean, the work that I do with prisoners, there's no one else in the country who's doing that pre-trial. So, but clearly it's important. I'm being paid to do it. So you know, the state didn't pay me the first time. They said, why do you know, you're lawyers, why do you need a conflict resolver on your team? You know, isn't that what you do? Turns out not. And so, so as I say, I'm, you know, in some demand for doing that work. So, you know, I think that it's, as I say, positioning ourselves so that we insert in the place where we have the most to offer because of the intersection of skills that we gain and perspectives that we gain from programming like this and our prior experience, and sort of leveraging the intersection so that we see the unique opportunities that we have. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
So I want to mention a couple of things. One thing is to think about sort of kind of the Russian doll method of career expansion ideas, where you sort of get this menu of volunteer opportunities. And so you're giving them a few hours, you're kind of like trying on some of their things, you're looking around at what this particular organization does, and you're saying to yourself, okay, there are three positions in this organization. They're all currently occupied, but they look interesting to me. So then, you know, volunteer a little bit with one, a little bit with another, get a little bit of a feel. And then once you're able to kind of shake that down into kind of a little bit smaller group of things that interest you, then seek an internship within that, because that's more of a commitment, but it also means that you get a whole lot more sort of exposure to the skills that you need, and you can turn around and tell us, like Rachel said, or maybe it was Amanda, so if there's a particular skill and we're not offering it, and you seek our advice, or you look on your own and you say, okay, I've just talked with this professor over in Koopa, somewhere in Koopa, and they're doing this competency-based course over there that fits exactly with a skill that conflict resolution doesn't teach, but it's matching up with what I think I'm learning about what I want to do for my internship. Talk to us about getting approval to have that course count toward your major, not for one of the core classes, but for an elective.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, no, we're not open to like all your electives being from sort of a smorgasbord of other departments, but we're very interested in helping you create the skill set that you are coming to slowly bring into high resolution for yourself. So that's kind of one thing. Another thing is regarding the interesting question that you posed to Rachel. I'm going to chime in a little bit because some of our graduates are working in really kind of like Rachel said, they spun this thing up out of thin air.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they didn't. Like you look at what's being available, what's now become available more and more. And we've got at least a couple of our graduates who are working for the city of Beaverton, because the city of Beaverton sees that these conflict transformation skills are quite valuable within their official structure. On the other hand, you look at the War Prevention Initiative. That was spun up out of thin air because one of the things that we do as faculty is operate as what in Jewish culture is called the Yentl. We're good matchmakers, so that when Rachel's got a much more complete sort of knowledge about all of the potential community partners. I've got some, and I can tell you that the War Prevention Initiative was spun up out of thin air and has employed some of our graduates, but also is being directed at the executive level by one of our adjuncts. And I was the one who introduced everybody to everybody else because I saw the potential of the connections. And this is part of what we try to do too. So this has led to a whole lot of opportunities for our students, just as one example. And so that's because we are not a field where you say, okay, now when I declare this major, I get on the train along with everybody else and go along toward the single place where we all get off. Yeah, this is exactly the opposite of that.
Yeah.
This is all about a very boutique experience for every student. And so that's what you want to do, is consult with faculty about the connections that we might know about. Sometimes we'll say, I don't know, talk to that faculty. And then you'll all of a sudden strike pay dirt or not. But all of us have different connections that can serve you.
And Gabe, so for example, you're interested in international work. Dr. Kanyako, who is not here today, is not here because he's on sabbatical, but he'll be back in the spring, and then he'll be here indefinitely, hopefully. He would be an excellent contact for you, because he actually teaches a class on non-governmental organizations and conflict resolution. So he'll be an excellent contact for you. That there are other places where people explore non-governmental organizations. I have an assignment in one of my classes related to that in the Intro to Conflict Resolution, and quite a lot of connections with NGOs here. And I'm working internationally, but I realize that you might not feel you are working internationally if you're working in Portland. So, sort of those connections with NGOs in other countries. Dr. Kanyako is an excellent contact, as is Dr. Anastasiou. And he has strong connections in Cyprus, which is where he is from. Dr. Kanyako is from Sierra Leone, and it has done a great deal of work and continues to do a lot of work in Africa. So there are, I don't know where in the world you're interested in doing that work. I have a few connections in India where I have spent some time. So, there are places, and Dr. Tint has connections in the Middle East. So we all have connections, as Tom was saying, all over the place, and can help direct you. And certainly in the undergraduate program, we are exploring developing a practicum experience. So any work experience that you decide to get, either work shadowing or doing hours of volunteering, you can do it for credit. And if you're doing it for credit, then you would have supervision from us. So that would help to direct your attention when you're on site in certain ways that would help you integrate your studies with your practice. If you just do volunteering, then that supervision isn't typically available. But anyway, we can talk more about that if you want. We can also help you identify grants where you could actually go abroad and do practicum. And almost all of the undergraduate program is offered in option, both as entirely online as well as in person. So you wouldn't necessarily not be able to do your PSU work from abroad. If you were doing practicum, you could also be taking other classes at the same time. Sorry, somebody raised their hand. Was that Brent?
Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, my question was, at what point, starting as a junior, at what point do I, in this path, do I really need to be saying, okay, I'm going to commit and I'm going to find a practicum and get started? Is that something that I should be postponing a bit, or something that I need to be jumping on right now?
At the moment, the practicum is set up one by one. So you don't, and it's also optional. So you don't have to do practicum. I would suggest that you wait a little bit until you know what your kind of area of focus is. And we really haven't got a limit on the number of practicum credits that a person can take, but I think all of us would feel more comfortable if it was a focused one than if you take a credit here, a credit there, a credit in 100 different places, so to speak. I think most of us would like to see it being a focusing, culminating experience rather than a divergent initial experience.
So
But we're still talking about that.
one of the ways to think about it is when you are slowly building up your knowledge of what you want to potentially do, is to think about the practicum as a way for you, as Rachel said, shadowing people who are doing kind of exactly what you want to do, so that you are sort of adhering yourself to them. You're learning, you're under their supervision. But then you transition, you flip that when you complete your degree, if you do a professional project, because that's where you become the creator. That's where you become the person who is executing your plan that's been vetted through us and potentially through an organization. So that's the flip in role that happens. So
we're
as
doing that in the undergraduate program as well, professional projects.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rachel. Yeah, you're right.
No, I mean, I think it's a great idea if we can. I mean, maybe we can do that as reading in conference or something. Wouldn't that be brilliant?
It would, yes, but you're right. This is more. Yeah, that's the graduate student option. I'm finding myself under request right now to be involved with undergraduate theses, etc. So I'm sort of thinking along the lines of
the honors thesis.
And coming out of your undergraduate degree as being perfectly employable right now. This is something that I think we're seeing so much foment right now. So, for example, what's going on with police departments and this uprising of, okay, like there should be there's defund the police. Well, yeah, there's a much more conflict resolution friendly and likely outcome will be we are going to redefine the 911 responses so that people with a degree in conflict resolution who have picked up those competencies, they should be responding to a certain sector. You should be hired to respond to a certain sort of 911 calls. And so this redesign, not just in Portland, but nationwide, this has already been piloted in Eugene, and they're very successful there. So that I think that more and more we can think about saying, okay, so how do we approach the city council, the mayor, because the mayor is in charge of the police in Portland, and say, how do we reconfigure this? I think Joanne Hardesty is in charge of 911. So, working with her is it's very logical for us to say, how do we help our graduates become employable in that regard? There's all these pretty interesting things that can be well served by the practicum that leads into some culminating student experience.
I have some more questions regarding the practicum. It's an interesting thing to me, but I also want to give others a chance if they have questions or thoughts. I don't know if you guys.
Why don't you go ahead and they can chip in, interrupt
Okay.
you. I don't care about that. I want to talk about this.
I'd never heard of practicum before, but I Googled what it was real quick, and you guys were explaining it right after I Googled it. But is that something that you can do? Is it similar to an internship where it doesn't have to be super long? It's something you can do over the summer. Okay. And then you'd mentioned that you had connections in India.
Yeah.
Okay. Any chance you're in Bangladesh?
Actually, no, but we can make them.
I was gonna ask you, like, is that something I can email you about?
Please
I
do.
was stationed in Dhaka for a year at the embassy, and this blanket it's currently what the dog uses so he can be on the bed, but it's actually they had this cool program there where women who had survived like domestic violence and some other stuff, they used old saris and they actually made blankets like this. So it's two saris put together, and they sold them for like the equivalent of $20, but they're phenomenal like blankets. And anyways, when you said that, is that something I could email you about? Just
Yes,
about?
absolutely. Because
Okay.
I mean, microcredit. So probably that program would have been part of microcredit types of programs. So microcredit is when banks make loans, very, very small loans to people who are trying to start their own businesses.
Right.
And an enormous amount of that funding actually goes to women. And so my guess is that the organization that did that is connected to various microcredit programs, which we have had some association with in the past. And yes, we can certainly try and track it down, see if they've got a website.
Not necessarily that organization. While I was there, I had a friend who worked for some NGOs, and she introduced me to what international politics deals with a little bit more than
Yeah.
domestic. Not that one's more important than the other, but it's just.
No, it's more interesting to you, and you've been deployed abroad. You know, I think that you're not unusual, and you're not the first person I've met in the military or read about who, because of their deployments abroad, has become really interested in what was going on in the communities where they found themselves stationed, and where you have a particular skill set because of your deployment. I mean, I don't know, do you speak a local language?
Unfortunately, we learned a little bit of Bangla, but trying to find somebody who the language had so many unusual oddities that
Yeah.
even the instructor we had, when I said some stuff to my friend who was in Bangladesh and she was 2, she was like, "What did you just tell me?" And I was like, "We were told that," because military, we were told that it meant get down on the ground, like lay down.
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, that phrase means go lay down in bed." And I was like,
Yeah.
but no, but
Yeah.
like this professional instructor is the one that taught us that, and it
Yeah.
was like, well, that phrase isn't really what we want if we're
No, definitely not.
responding. Like,
Yeah.
so we learned some, but unfortunately, how good it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe linguistic competence, but not cultural competence.
Correct. Yes.
Oh my goodness, how could that be misunderstood, man?
Learning languages is something that I'm working on. I'm trying to minor in German. I know it's not the most relevant to, Southeast or Southern Asia, but I do like languages, so it's something
Well,
that
any language will help, because it gives you a sense of how it refracts culture. I mean, I think we have to understand that language is not a translation of our own language. It's a worldview. And so any language that you take that fragments your own worldview enough to say it could be not the only one, I think is really valuable. So any language that you become fluent in will help you with other kinds of fluencies. So don't worry about which language it is. I think linguistic competence is really helpful. Plus, with the importance of Germany in international affairs, specifically around immigration, and also equity at home. I think Germany has really got some very interesting stuff going on there. Being able to read in the original may be very helpful. So I wouldn't discount German. I think it's an important language. But yes, by all means, email me, tell me about, we can talk about what you're really interested in and see if we can find something that would be interesting. And it might be here that, there's actually stuff that you can do here that would replicate well once you're free of the constraints that are keeping you in Portland.
So I want to mention, I think I probably told Brent about this because we had a kind of a Zoom session, I think. And I don't think I've told anybody else about this, but I should actually post it to the whole conflict transformation list. But there are some resources that can really help you kind of think about careers and other opportunities. And one of them is the Synergy website locally in Portland here, and they kind of look at the whole nonprofit world in our greater Portland area. They used to do emails out, but now they just have a website and they have these listings. So that's a resource. It's CNRG, and they've made that into an acronym of Synergy.
Tom, I took a look at that. I think that's the one that I took a look at. There was one that you sent me that has just recently disbanded within about 2 years. And I want to say Synergy was the one that it looked like it was a message board that nobody was responding to. So I don't want to for sure discredit what you're saying, but take a look at that one and see if maybe I saw something different than you're seeing, or if I've got the names wrong. But there was one of the ones you sent me to, I was really excited about it. And I went and I was like, why doesn't anybody post on here anymore? And then finally I went to the about and it was like, we've decided to discontinue this as a business and make it community supported now. And of course the community was not interested in doing that, it appeared. So
wow.
Again, I'm not sure it was Synergy. It might've been a different one, but
no, you're probably right. And that's a real loss, because they were sending out some pretty interesting opportunities in Greater Portland. Now, they weren't focused just on, our degree sort of penumbra, but they were interesting because they were localized. So I'm sorry to hear that. I knew that they had stopped their digest and emailing that out. So that is a pity. So let's go on to something that still does exist, I hope, and that's the PCDN network. And if you check out their website, they are focused on our field, and they usually have job opportunities, practicum opportunities, or internships.
And that's linked out of the careers site. So the
Good. Okay.
The PCDN website is linked out of the careers site, so that you can.
Okay, and I'm assuming that the same thing is true for David Smith.
Yes. Yeah, but yes, I'll check that
Okay.
link too. No, yeah, it is. Certainly his book is linked, but do you have a website that I should be linking to him specifically, and will I find it easily on Google?
So I don't know about that, but
Okay.
yes, yeah, he does have a website, but he's also got this sort of pretty active email subscription list that you just ask him, can I get on your list? And he puts you on.
Yeah.
And he's kind of the one-man band. He is an expert in our field in this stuff, and he literally wrote the book. Peace careers, or jobs in the peace.
And that's focused. His book is focused a lot on people who are integrating a sort of a peaceful perspective into other work.
Yes.
So people who are actually qualifying in other fields, how they would integrate conflict resolution and peace building into those jobs. So his book is less focused on actual jobs in peace building as much as spreading the good word wherever you are.
Right. Or, kind of connecting your academic degree to convincing somebody to hire you as valuable within their field. Yeah. But he also, he sends out, like, I'll get maybe, I'm sure you're on his list, Rachel, like one or two emails a day, maybe, or at least a few a week. And one might be about an internship, one might be about a conference, one might be about a job. He's just kind of all over the ballpark, but nobody else does exactly what he does, sort of for the benefit of everybody else. Unless you know about more, Rachel, because he's the one.
I really don't. I think he's really excellent. And then, I also get, because of PJSA, the Peace and Justice Studies Association, I hear from various places about opportunities that they have as well.
And that costs money, unfortunately. They changed their policy a few years ago so that you have to belong to that organization to get their notifications, which I protested to no avail whatsoever. But David sends these out to anybody who asks.
Yeah. And as far as PJSA is concerned, anything that I think our students will be interested in, I'll forward to Aislinn, and she sends it out to our list.
Perfect.
Tom, I'm looking at the CNRG site right now, just to make sure that I'm not steering you off of a good course. And what I'm seeing is it looks like the daily digest is stopped. It looks like
Right.
the opportunities tab, when I look at it, they all say apply by such and such 2012. So in that regard, it looks like that piece isn't working, but it also says who's online right now. And it's like there are currently 63 guests online and there's still a nonprofit directory. So there may be some salvage, value that you find on there if you take a look at it. It may not be completely garbage. It just doesn't look like it's kicking out current employment opportunities, which was what I went there for.
Right.
Thank you. I'm going to have to bail on everybody because I've got something else coming up soon. And I'm sure that with your great big busy lives, you do too. But Rachel, you're the host now, so I will.
Yeah, I need to go too, I'm afraid, but it's been very nice to meet all of you. Please feel free to email me if I can be of help. Again, it's my name, as you see, rachel.cunliffe@pdx.edu. Feel free to email me about anything related to careers or really anything else. I mean, I'm good for a chat about pretty much anything.
And you would not know it by the relatively small number of students who joined us today. But if you look through our list of declared majors and minors, we're actually one of the two biggest programs west of the Mississippi in our field. So we're very glad that you guys are representing today, and please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us.
Yeah, really. Great to see you. Thank you, Tom, for convening us. Hope everybody has a great day, rest of your week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.